I'm going to call tonight's meeting to order. All rise for the flag salute. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, now we can do roll call.
Councilmember Murray.
Present.
Councilmember Ryan.
Here.
Councilmember Payne Donovan.
Present.
Mayor Matsumoto Wright.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Wall.
Here.
Councilmember Sonmore.
Here.
Councilmember Woodard.
Here.
That concludes roll call.
Thank you. So next is late changes to agenda. Do we have any late changes to agenda?
We do not, Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And, excuse me, next is public comment. Do we have any public comments?
No one signed up and no one registered for comments online.
All right, thank you. Okay, so next is the consent calendar. Mayor Pro Tem Wall.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I move to approve the consent calendar, items A through,
Oh, did you, there's Councilmember Murray.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to remove an item from the consent calendar, please, or the consent agenda, please. I'm just pulling it up. Oh,
Item K, I believe.
which one?
Item K.
Thank you. I'd like to remove item K from the consent agenda, please.
Okay, so item K has been removed from the consent agenda. Mayor Pro Tem Wall.
thank you, Madam Mayor. Move to approve the consent calendar, items A through J.
Second.
All right. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. And where are we going to put K?
We can put K as number 5, Mayor, and then move everything else down.
Okay. All right, so next, we're going to then talk about the resolution for recreational 5-year fee schedule then. If we're doing it as number 5, that'll be next.
Yes, correct.
Okay. All right, so who would like to? Councilmember Murray?
Do you want to
Do
make?
we ask her why?
So you can have a motion and then second and then discussion.
So, go ahead, Mayor Pro Tem Wall.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I would move to adopt a resolution setting recreation park fees for 2025 through 29. This can be,
Second?
And then discussion.
Okay, now we can have discussion. Councilmember Murray, did you have something to say about that?
Sure. Thank you, Mayor. I appreciate it. And not anything new. I think this is something that we've talked about previously. And I shared my concerns with, we had approved already proposed increases for 2025 for our resolution, or our recreation and parks fees. And the new fees before us, some of them are significantly more than the fees that we had previously approved. I'm supportive of us continuing to ensure that we are, addressing the rising costs of government by passing on reasonable increases. And I don't know that I think that these increases are reasonable for our residents at this point in time. And that's not because I doubt our staff who put these together, but in looking at some of them and getting feedback on who's using our parks and recreation programs, particularly programs that have a high percentage of out of Mountlake Terrace residents using them. There's more desire to use particularly our aquatics programs than there are spaces in them. And so I think continuing to ask our residents to pay higher fees when they oftentimes can't even get into the programs just doesn't seem, it wouldn't be how I would approach, I guess, these costs. So I would pass on more of the fees to our to folks who live outside of Mountlake Terrace and aren't also paying for these services through their tax dollars. And so I was looking at some of the increases so we're all tracking, right? So I pulled up a couple of the things that we know are popular things, right? So swim lessons, current cost for a swim lesson in 2024 is $7.30, we had approved a 2025 cost of $7.30, so there hadn't been an increase previously approved. The proposed fees before us increased that cost to $8.85, which is an increase of over 21%. And it doesn't seem like a lot, but all of those things add up. So when we look at school-age camps, for instance, we're looking at an increase before us that's almost 13%, which is almost $100 a month if we're talking about, you know, a single school-age student in summer camp through one of our programs for our residents. So I recognize that we need to find ways to balance our budget. This just wouldn't be how I would ultimately go about it, and therefore wanted to at least restate that I have concerns about it. I think if we are going to look at these sorts of increases and have to do them, we definitely should be looking at them further out so residents have longer to prepare. I mean, as it is, we're looking at some of these increases going into effect here, you know, in less than 2 weeks. So those are my concerns. So I wanted to make sure we at least had a chance to talk about it one more time before we voted.
Does anyone have anything to add? Councilmember Ryan?
Thank you, Mayor. For clarification, I brought up on the agenda, the 2025 approved and then the 2025 proposed changes. And I was wondering which one council liked better. Is that, I'm just not quite sure what we're going to vote on here. So is it that 2025 was 6 for adult swim and 650 for non-resident, or 725 and 8? So unless I don't have the right chart, but looks like we have our park director here. Thank you.
Hey, good evening, council members. So there is an exhibit, that's the fee schedule that's approved. I believe it's labeled Exhibit A. And so that should have that entire fee schedule, and it starts with 2025 as the first year. In the PowerPoint and also in the memo, we gave you, I believe, the approved rates for 2025, which you approved last year. And the next to that is what we proposed in place of those rates.
If I may continue then, which one would you prefer, council member?
Thank you for letting me have the opportunity to clarify myself, Councilmember Ryan. So what we already approved was the 2025 approved, and what's before us right now is the 2025 proposed changes, which changes some of the fees that we had previously approved for next year. I would not support those increases. I think some of them are fine. I mean, and we could go through line by line. I was hoping that we'd have an opportunity to look at some revised fees that reduced the impact to our residents while passing on some of the cost to our non-residents, which was something that several council members had asked for us to take a look at and consider. That isn't what's before us right now. And so with that, this wouldn't be something that I would support moving forward with, because again, I just think the cost increases to our residents, particularly at this moment in time, feel like they are out. Ultimately, I feel like they are going to keep more folks from accessing services at a time when we've talked a lot about how do we bring folks into the community, how do we help folks connect, how do we help folks, you know, have opportunities for, you know, things that are positive for their mental health and their physical health, and that are just necessary when we talk about things like childcare, right? So yeah. So I would not support what's before us right now. Yeah, I guess, does that answer your question?
Yes, so then you'd like the one we proposed last year for this year?
That's what's already in place. Yeah, I think if we did not move forward with this tonight, and correct me if I'm wrong, what would stand is the current 2025 approved rates. And then if we wanted to make any additional changes, we would have to vote on that at a different time.
Okay, thank you.
Councilmember Salmore?
Can I ask, if we didn't change that, what would be our cost recovery for the pool, and what dollar amount are we looking at roughly? Jeff, I don't know if you can tell me, because we've got a budget here that we're going to have to cut here pretty soon. So we have to decide, as we know, most of the cuts we're going to have to look at will affect our citizens. And I get where you're coming from on the park and rec side. This is kind of a special thing because we have a pool and we have childcare. So I'm looking at the dollars and cents of where we're at, of what that would mean by that funding not coming into the city.
I don't know if I have a dollar amount for you, but I do know that we did put together some comparisons that would show what it would look like if we shifted all those revenue increases to non-residents. And that non-resident increase was in the 40-something% range for the fee. And those non-residents, especially for swim lessons and some of those programs, they make up 75% of our participants in the pool. So they're the ones who are supporting the program as well through those fees. So that was a major concern, is 75% of those fees coming in, we'd be increasing it by 44% and far outpace kind of our competitors in the region. So the fees that we proposed are within range of our competitors for resident and non-resident. And that's those graphs that we showed you previously. And a lot of those fees are due, as we mentioned in the budget cycle, to various factors. Insurance is one of them. It skyrocketed. We did adjust staffing costs as well as part of that salary survey. And, as I've said many times before this, we were paying swim instructors like $4 an hour less than Dick's was paying people to work down the street. And that was a major concern, and we were unable to recruit people. So that salary change did allow us to recruit a lot more people, and we're able to ramp up now because of that. But we do need to be able to increase the revenues to kind of balance those costs. And this is what we came up with by trying to do that. And we're still not in the cost recovery mode of where we were, 5 years ago, like we discussed in the budget cycle too.
Right. And I remember you gave us a detailed report in our park and rec, and people came in and explained how they got the different costs for the different services, and park and rec committee was okay with it. We all have the same concerns about costs going up to our residents, but I'm really concerned about the budget. There's something else on the agenda that we're going to be looking at, some costs being lost, revenue coming into the city. That's quite a bit. And so if there's a fine line to balance all this, right? What our citizens have to pay, because we know water and sewer is going to be going up. We're going to have to be cutting things. I mean, look at what Edmonds just did. I mean, that's where this part gets really tough, because I remember those days having my daughter in childcare and swimming lessons, and you had to give up a lot. So it's a tough decision, and I'm glad you brought it up. And I'm also glad of the research that the staff did as well.
Councilmember Woodard?
Thank you, Mayor. I want to acknowledge, I appreciate Councilmember Murray pulling this off the consent calendar so we can have this conversation. I appreciate the work the staff has done. Mine's really more just a technical question, and maybe to the city manager, and it's already in the public record, but at this point, we are in essence referencing an email that was sent to us labeled recreation fee change request, and that's early December where this work was done, which is just my way of saying it impacted my decision. If I understand it correctly, and here's where I will walk a fine line and say to Councilmember Murray, if she can clarify, one of my concerns was, if I heard correctly, was this idea we would charge the non-residents a higher fee, maybe not even now, but at some point. But in doing so, we just heard, thank you for bringing up the email, and you were discussing that, but I was looking for it, so I kind of missed him. Oh, you're talking about what I'm looking for. Dang it. But nonetheless, you've done that analysis. I just feel like we should put that in front of the public so they can see it as well. Which isn't to negate anything that's been said, but just so, again, from a technical standpoint, folks know, here's what we were looking at when we came to our decisions, because I'm ultimately not considering the idea of changing the fee structure to be more on the non-residents based upon what I'm reading. It doesn't track for me. So, but again, I just want to make sure the public can see it as well.
Anyone else? Councilmember Payne Donovan?
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and I really do appreciate the conversation. I recall staff's good thoughtful explanation. It's difficult as we, consider everything that has been mentioned here. I think the equity, the grounding in equity that I see Councilmember Murray focused on is super important, and we're headed towards a conversation about how to continue providing these services in town, and I think it's really tough. I'm quite torn, but I think I'm supportive of staff's suggestion. I would like to see a wider spread, but also take staff's point about the preponderance of our visitors coming from out of town. And so I'm supportive of the proposal before us, but I really do appreciate the conversation. Thank you.
All right. So go ahead, Councilmember Murray.
Thank you, Mayor. I guess I do want to frame that just a little bit differently than I think staff is looking at it. So 75% of our current swim lesson attendees, for instance, don't live in Mountlake Terrace. There are lots of folks in Mountlake Terrace who would like to have their kids attending swim lessons who cannot get into swim lessons to attend. So there is more desire than there is us to be able to provide the ability. Like we've talked again and again about how we're not able to provide enough swim lessons to meet the need. So I will say, like, from my perspective, the idea that 75% is a disqualifier, I actually think that's one of the drivers to look at a higher non-resident cost structure, because again, those non-residents are flooding those lessons in a way that crowds out our residents who are also paying tax dollars to help support the recreation services, which we make huge transfers each year to Parks and Recreation from the general fund, from our general tax dollars to help support those services. So I guess I appreciate staff's perspective on it. I guess for me, I look at it the other way in that there is room for that, population of non-residents. I think we should see what the market will bear there. And to be fair, our only option was not to transfer all of the difference in budget to non-residents in our Parks and Recreation fees. There are lots of ways we could have looked at our budget dollars to balance our budget that didn't increase Parks and Rec fees this much. That was a decision that is a decision that is before us. So I will just say again, this wasn't the only way we could have looked at balancing our budget for the next 2 years. It was what we chose, and if we move forward, it is what we will choose. And I do think that we will need to, if we do move forward with this, continue to look for ways to help our residents who are struggling and who are going to struggle to maintain use of our services with these cost increases.
Thank you.
Mayor, I just want to remind council as well that you did approve a scholarship fund for the first time ever. So there is a $5,000 annual scholarship fund that the city is providing. And that was actually funded with ARPA previously, but with general fund dollars is something that's out there as well for people to apply for. So that kind of went hand in hand with the cost increases that we know that there could be some people that would like to apply for that and to get discounts or in some lessons, in some ways, free lessons as well. So just wanted to make sure I reminded you of that.
All right, thank you. Okay, so is that a hand raise? Okay, Councilmember Woodard.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you for bringing that up. I was going to ask for that clarification. I didn't know it was the first time, but I thought for sure we had money set aside. And I also wanted to kind of double back and admit to myself, my kids haven't been in swimming lessons for a while, but what I recall was there were two separate opening dates. That's what I'm asking now. There was a Mountlake Terrace can register date, and then everybody else can register date. Is that no longer the case?
No, there is not a Mountlake Terrace specific registration date right now. Okay. The registration date is a pre-registration date for people who are already in lessons.
Okay.
So if you're enrolled currently, then you have the opportunity to enroll a few days earlier than the open registration time period.
What would it look like for us to implement something like that?
When we had a different recreation software, that was possible. The current one that we've had since 2017, it's not possible to have more than 2 registration dates.
Gotcha.
So if they instituted some changes, which we've already asked them about, then that could be something we would be able to do. It was very, very complicated to register 3 different times for every single registration period for swim lessons. The biggest driver of it is not having enough opportunity, though. It's not having enough lessons. When we had more lessons available, when we had more staff, this was a non-issue. We still were full, but not nearly as backed up as we are now. So we're hoping, right, it's a chicken or the egg discussion, that we're able to hire more staff and we'll be able to bring more people in, and there will be less issues with that overall, with having the resident, non-resident, that could balance itself out a little more. I think in years past, when we did have more lessons available, we were closer to 30, 35, or even 40% resident. So that's probably the biggest issue in my mind.
Sure, yeah. Thank you, I appreciate it.
Okay, are we ready to vote? Do we have to repeat it?
No, we have a motion and second on the floor. I think we just
Okay.
call the question.
All right, and so that would be to approve what is already here. So all in favor?
Aye.
Did I hear? All opposed?
Nay.
No.
I couldn't tell.
5-2, I think it is the final.
Okay. Which way?
The fee schedule is approved.
Okay, I couldn't tell. All right. All right.
Mayor, I'm also unclear on that. Could we do a roll call or recount that vote?
Sure.
Okay.
So the motion on the floor was to approve the recreation, the resolution for recreation 5-year fee schedule as presented.
So we're going to redo this. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
No.
No.
So that is 5-2.
Yes,
Okay.
that's what I'm hearing, correct. Okay,
So does that mean motion passes?
it does.
Okay. All right. Then we can move on to the actual number 5, which is the review of the public hearing and vote on ordinance adopting multifamily tax exemption code amendment with our city manager.
Thank you, Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, and council members. We talked about the extension of the multifamily tax exemption program a few weeks ago, and wanted to just reiterate a few items. In 2008, the council did adopt an ordinance for a multifamily tax exemption program that eventually sunsetted and ended. But council did in 2022 on several different dates consider implementation of the multifamily tax exemption credit under the new RCW 84.14 that was adopted in order to increase the supply of multifamily housing in the state. And council adopted that program for an 8 and 12-year extension at the end of 2022. What this memo and draft language is to provide for an extension of the 12-year program. So the initial term would be for 12 years. This would allow a extension of the 12-year program for a total of 24 years. But the applicant must apply for the extension within 18 months of the expiration of the original. And it, as written, council has discretion on whether or not to approve that extension. We did add a provision that says the original intent of the legislation was for the programmatic requirements to remain the same. So it doesn't bind a future council, but it is a statement of intent. And with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Are there, Councilmember Salmore?
I'm wondering if you can explain to us, like you did that last time, about the Terrace station. They'll save over $4 million because of this, and that would be something that would normally go into the city's budget.
Correct. So I'm pulling up those numbers so I can make sure that I give you accurate numbers here. So on a, if I remember correctly, this is a 250-unit development. So hypothetical 250-unit apartment development. At 20% of the units, at 80% of the area median income or less, that's what this would allow and promote. But the city would reduce its tax revenue on the 12-year program by about 1.8 million. And with the extension to with the 12-year extension, 24-year total, that would reduce revenue by a little over 4.5 million. But that's also taking into account heavily the increased property values that we expect in the out years for these types of programs.
Can I just follow up? So the $1.8 million would be at the beginning. They have 250 units at 20% would have to be low income under the 80% income level. So 2040, so maybe 50 units. Last time I thought I heard 80. So if we're saying 60 units, over, when is the $1.8 million? I'm trying to.
12 years.
12 years for the $1.8 million. Okay. So that would, I'm just thinking how to put this into cost ratio of looking at 60 units and removing $1.8 million from the budget. What is the return on investment for the city? And that would be housing 60 people that are most likely outside of Mountlake Terrace city limits into these units. And it kind of goes back to the discussion we just had about the pool and looking at the return on investment for the person building the actual units. I know we need housing, but I think it's nice to have a conversation on the amount of money that the city will be losing over that 24-year period. And that's just on one building.
One 250, hypothetical 250 unit. So if the development actually came in at 300 and something units, the numbers would be a little bit higher, but we just wanted to give you a gauge.
Ballpark.
Councilmember Woodard?
Thank you. I'll pick up that mantle. So let me make sure I already follow. We walk out of this room because the power goes out and did nothing. We are still on the hook already for losing, quote unquote, $1.8 million potential in revenue. If I were to superimpose, how much did I gain? Because this is how much I lost, which is not real money because they're not here. Correct? It's not money that was guaranteed.
That's
it's
correct.
Artificially, if this were to happen, the money you would lose. So if fair enough. We can get an answer is what I'm hearing, because again, that would be my question. I'm going to lose 1.8 million. What am I going to gain? Because as it stands right now, it's at zero, because that's where it's at. Now, the question that would follow up that I think is for this council is, and again, I think we answered it already, I'm willing to pay $1.8 million to make sure I have low-income families, or at least affordable housing, because that's a funky space. But when I think to myself, what's the return on value? I go, well, potentially 60 residents that wouldn't have been here, and who knows what their actual value is, I'm willing to gamble. Now, that said, we already gambled, so we're not going to discuss, should we do 1.8? We're already on the hook for that. What I did hear is the 4.5, and I go, whoa. But I think I heard as a remedy, we can't bind that council. So like many decisions in the past of this city, that's a future council's decision. Can I stand here and say, am I setting them up for victory or failure? I feel like, well, potentially victory. Because again, if I'm losing 4.5, what's the actual gained? And again, it's zero right now. So it's not real money, is what I'm saying. So I appreciate the red line of loss, but I'd love to see the blue line of gain. Because again, it's at zero flat line right now. from what I see. So that would be my pick up the mantle and set it back down in terms of making our decisions tonight.
Let's have Councilmember Payne Donovan go and then.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And I think this is, because the MFTE program, currently exists, I think the question is sort of, should we allow for this to be, extended? And I appreciate this exercise in sort of doing this math, because it's, revenue is important. I think also having conversation about, bringing folks into town who are going to contribute to, they're going to take swim lessons, they're going to, pay sales tax on the things they buy in town and online and beyond, and contribute in ways that aren't really measurable. And so, for my part, I think, this is no silver bullet. It is, however, an increment in seeking affordability that I think is really commendable. And we, again, we've got this program set in place already. I think, allowing it to be extended out, well into, the lifespan of one of these, or the, how you'd say that better, into the, the use life of a building, I think is a good policy. So I'm supportive of this. Thank you.
Can we have, okay, Councilmember Murray?
Thank you, Mayor. Are we discussing now, or are we going to open the public hearing and have the public hearing are we doing questions now and then public hearing and then discussion? I guess I just want to make sure I'm tracking on when I should give my thoughts.
Go ahead, Mayor Pro Tem Wall.
This guy on your left. Move to adopt an ordinance reinstating the multifamily property tax exemption.
Mayor Pro Tem, we can have a motion to open the public hearing.
That's what I thought you were doing.
Sorry, I'm ready to jump right ahead, I guess. I'll move to open public hearing instead.
Second.
Okay, so it's been moved and seconded to open the public hearing. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Public hearing is now open. And now, do we have any written comments or anything submitted? Oh, here. Am I looking at
No
the
one
wrong-
signed up. Were you planning to speak? Can you just state your name and you'll have 5 minutes?
3 of these.
Is the mic on? Oh. Thanks. I'm AP Hurd, and I have been working for a few years on the project that's just outside the transit station. We would be really excited to have you provide the option for the 12-year extension to the MFTE. This is not only a way to produce affordable housing really cost effectively, it's actually the program that has produced the most affordable housing units in Washington. And it also can help really spur the development of the town center, which I know has been an important objective for the city because it really helps to get projects going. So it provides both a lot of housing units and a lot of affordable units. And really appreciate you considering this tonight. Thank you so much.
Okay. Do we have any written ones?
No one has signed up to comment online, and there have been no written comments.
Okay, thank you. Okay, the next is this one here.
Close the public hearing. I got to move to close the public hearing.
All right. Mayor Pro Tem Wall.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Move to close the public hearing.
Second.
So it's been moved and seconded to close the public hearing. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? So public hearing is now closed. Let's see, did we have a motion on the table? No, not yet.
No,
And,
I
but,
just had some more questions is all. I'm just trying to bring light to something. But you guys.
Can we have more
opened-
discussion?
We can, if you put a motion and a second on the floor, and then you can discuss.
Okay, so Mayor Pro Tem Wall.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Now I move to adopt an ordinance reinstating the multi-property tax exemption.
Second.
So it's been moved and seconded. Now we have a discussion. Mayor, Councilmember Moore.
Well, my big concern is we've got one going now, and we're going to have more. And so there's potentials of many millions of dollars being brought off the table. I know future citizens of Mountlake Terrace, and I know people that are below the threshold deserve a place to live. I'm not saying about that. I'm trying to draw attention to how we're going about in the state of Washington to get affordable housing. I think there's more that we can do in different ways, but right now, when city budgets are so out of whack and we have to give these certain incentives, it kind of makes it uneven for a city and the people living here. And so that's what I'm trying to get at, is I don't think a lot of times what we're doing is the best way for the state of Washington. And I'd also like to see some stipulations when these builders come in. If we have an issue with the park, they should really negotiate well with our cities, because we are giving them this break in that. And so I think there's a lot more variables that could happen when we do things like this. But a lot of times we just rubber stamp it and say, okay. And that's why I'm glad that we had some conversation about it today, and we had conversation about Park and Rec, because a lot of times we just say okay without really thinking about the consequences. But I just want to draw attention of how drastic of measure it is to get people to have low-income housing within their units, and most likely they're always going to be apartments. We don't have a lot of condos coming in, rules looking at that, and so it's going to be $4.5 million over, I believe it was a 24-year period to house 60 people a year. And so to me, it would be nice to have it more even and more flexible within the city. So I'm just pointing different variables out.
Anyone else? Councilmember Murray?
Thank you, Mayor. Appreciate it, and always appreciate the conversation. And at least for me, I will say anytime we are looking at increasing the cost to residents, that is something that I think long and hard and deeply about. It is never a given or a rubber stamp or something that I take for granted. And so, and I don't know that any of us do. So I guess I just wanted to say that to start with. But supportive of this and supportive of it for a number of reasons. One, I am a product of programs like this, and we are not just talking about 60 people housed. You're talking about 60 units, oftentimes with multiple folks in those units. And the ripple effects of people having a place to live and being able to stay in the community that they lived in. So I will give you my story. I grew up in Seattle. My parents got divorced. We ended up without a place to live. Without programs like this, I couldn't have stayed in the community I grew up in. And I want people who live in our community, regardless of their situation, whether it is increasing costs of rent that are just, they're huge. Like folks can't keep up. And so is this would I love there to be other solutions, better solutions? Absolutely. If somebody has better solutions, I would love to hear them. We should be working on those. But in the meantime, until we get to a place where we've brought housing costs under control, this is a way to help folks of moderate incomes stay in our community, live in our community. And if that is something that we can extend, I mean, 24 years is not a long time. You talk about the life of a child, right? 18 years, 12 years goes fast. So providing the opportunity to renew this program so that folks who perhaps are benefiting from the program can continue to stay in the community that they have become a part of, I think absolutely is a win for us. And it's a win, again, like I think we can talk about the, potential revenue loss, but again, that is potential revenue loss. We are looking at, the potential that some of these projects don't get built without these programs in place. And, this increase of $12.8 million with the 12-year with extension, that looks pretty good to me in terms of how we look at our future budgets. We could definitely use $12.8 million more a year. Maybe we could keep rec fees down a little bit more with those additional funds. So anyway, very, very supportive of this. Appreciate all of the work that went into putting together a proposal that tries to take it, all of the feedback that we've gotten into consideration, but very supportive of us continuing to look for ways to live our values and to live our, mission statement, which talks about, ensuring that folks of all income levels can live in our community. And this is one step that we can take. And again, I'm open to all of the other steps and suggestions that folks have. If there are ways that we could be supporting, continuing to bring more options into our community, all for that. But this looks like a good one that is here before us and would love to move forward with it.
Councilmember Samo, did you have your hand?
So I'm not one-upping you, but yes, I watched my father die growing up, and we went from one income to no income. So I definitely know what it's like to be poor and being under the income level. My point is, why is it only 60 units? Why can't it be more? Why aren't we going into the state and asking for more? That's what I'm asking for is, and then if we're giving such good benefits, we have problems with the builders all the time. There should be some lenience on working with the cities. That's my point. It's not denying anybody of any housing. It's looking at what we're getting on return. Why can't we look at that? I know we have different things that come through the state, but a lot of times I don't think a lot of the people that have been elected have been in local government, and they don't know what it means to cities when they put different restrictions on this. And so I don't want to argue with anybody over not wanting to help people that can't afford housing. It's not that at all. It's looking at these so-called toolbox kits that help our cities that really is not really helping the city per se in the way of funding and budget. It's helping the builders. Hopefully it's going to help 60. I wish it could be 100 in that unit. That's what I'm saying is sometimes I think we need to question what we're always hearing, because a lot of times we just rubber stamp and then we say it's okay. And I don't think a lot of what we're doing for the homeless is okay. I think there's other things that we could be doing.
Councilmember Woodard?
Thank you, Mayor. I really love this conversation, and that's all I feel it is a conversation, so I appreciate that, not an argument. I just wanted to say, in the spirit of one-upmanship, I agree. I think we could have asked for more and gotten more. In fact, I vaguely remember, if we go back in the record, one of these council members actually asked for that, but we all went with the 12-year that we have instead. So I just kind of want to put that out there, that we had a chance, but it is the tool that we're using, which ironically, these numbers would have looked much higher. So not quite sure your argumentation at the moment. But that said, I just want to say we could have had more. So let's remember that the next time a tool like this comes down the street.
Okay, I don't see any other hands going up. Shall we just go for the question? Mayor Pro Tem Wall?
Call for the question.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Okay, great. I really love the fact that we're having discussions and airing everything out before we vote. Next is number 6, the review and vote on contract award of the police department generator. Are they going to have heat this winter?
Well, good evening, Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, and council members. I'm Recreation and Parks Director Jeff Betts. And tonight, I'll be reviewing and asking for approval on several end-of-the-year items. This first presentation is pertaining to the replacement of a standby generator for police and fire station number 19. So the purpose of this presentation is to purchase and install a new generator. Really, it's to make the city more resilient. And this is an initiative that council has backed as part of its council goals. And so by installing backup power at city facilities, including the one shown in this map here, this presentation is for Fire Station 19 and the police station. And the next one will be concerned with City Hall. So currently, police and fire have a generator, as I'll get into, but it does not fully back up the power at either of the buildings. So tonight's agenda, a little bit of background information. I'll talk about design work that was completed, some scope of work, the budget, some of the bids we received, the timeline, and the request of council and questions. So the current generator that powers police and fire during an outage is located between the two buildings. And I just did this overhead map where it's going to shows the proposed location, but the current one, if you can see my mouse, is right between the buildings behind here. And it is a pad with a retaining wall that supports that current generator. The current Cummins diesel standby generator, it's, as mentioned, located between the buildings, and it was purchased over 20 years ago. Only backs up half of each building. Originally it was purchased for one building, but for some reason, the decision was made back then to let's just do half of each building. So that's where we're at right now. It's proven to be an issue during power outages, as not all the facilities are fully functional. Additionally, the city's server room is housed in a secure room back there as well, and that's all the servers and switches and everything that we need for the city to operate. All the IT equipment is back there as well and backed up with that power source. So this replacement has been on the city's capital improvement plan for a number of years due to the inadequacy of the current generator. But when the annexation agreement was drawn up last year, Fire, as part of it, offered to pay for half of a new generator, as they also identified it as an issue. So staff did some planning and identified ARPA funds for this project and estimated that would be $550,000 for both generator projects. The next one I'll talk about as well as this one. So the design considerations. So first to execute this purchase install, we needed to contract with somebody that was an electrical design consultant, and that was Stantec. Stantec proceeded to investigate the power needs for both facilities and performed the 30-day load test. Additional work was also undertaken to determine the proper location based on the size of the generator required and the noise also that it could make to fall in line with code. The required generator after that 30-day load test is larger than the current pad and site location, so we had to look for somewhere else to locate it. So after demolishing the bunkers down there below the library in Veterans Memorial Park, it became obvious that that would be a good location to set a 12-ton generator that requires support and also requires plenty of space for air, for breathing, just like any engine requires. So those bunkers were identified as only logical and reasonable location, but more work was done also to determine a few potential generator types to power both buildings in case of that outage. Other required equipment includes conduit, a transfer switch, and lots of new wiring, some improvements to both boards, breaker panels, and the transfer switch, the automatic transfer switch that we do have is also insufficient for that location of police. So that would need to be upgraded as well. And that automatic transfer switches are very expensive. And so the automatic transfer switch does exactly what it says it does, is nobody needs to be around it. If the power goes out, it just automatically comes on and fires the generator up and powers the building. As opposed to, some homeowners may have that, but as opposed to when you go out and start your generator manually and attach it to the building and then would power your facility. So after going through that and identifying what would be appropriate for these two buildings, we've identified a scope of work for that contractor. So the scope of work included, and this may be hard to see, if you forgive me for that, this is a plan set, and I outlined in red the path of that conduit. So the new generator location is in the pads down here, the storage bunker pad down here on the bottom, and they would have to run conduit all the way up and around the police station and all the way up and around to where the parking garage is, if you're familiar with that area, in between the two buildings, between the the parking garage and police station. And then additionally, more feeders and branch circuits would run from there into both of those buildings as well. So the existing generator would have to be hauled off, and that site and some other related site work would need to be done. There would need to be grounding done, miscellaneous electrical work, and utility potholing as well. So an invitation was published, the invitation to bid was published in November, and at the bid opening on December 6th, there were bids from 3 contractors. Staff determined the low bid of KR Homes was responsive as well as responsible for a total bid of $656,977.75. So the budget for the project, and this project is funded, as mentioned, in partnership with South County Fire. And so they have pledged to pay for half of the cost of the install work as well as any contingency required. And the city's portion would be funded via ARPA, but the contingency portion, we would not be able to fund it with ARPA because we need to allocate that this year because it expires 12/31/2024. So the work would not happen until next year. So we don't want to lose that money. So we would need to utilize any CIP or city local funding for that. So staff are recommending an additional 10%, and that's the $59,455 here in contingency. And as mentioned, ARPA funds would not be eligible for that contingency. So the city, as part of the project, will manage the bid and the contractor, and the South County Fire would in turn then reimburse the city for costs per that annexation agreement. The total construction budget, when you include the install bid as well as the contingency, is $716,433. And just to identify additionally, this chart here, a table, actually displays also the Stantec design cost. There's actually a change order on top of that that actually just came through. That's about $3,000 for that 30-day period where they monitored the power. So it is a little bit higher than that, as shown. So the timeline for the project. So we would work on, if council approved tonight, we'd work on contractor documents through the end of the year and execute that with the city manager's authority based upon council giving us that authority. And then work would begin in January through July. I would assume we'd probably wait until spring. Really twofold is that the generators take a long time. They're all quite a few weeks out to order and get into a place, although it's in a much better place than it was 3-4 years ago as far as delivery times. So the request of council tonight, the recommended motion would be shown here on the screen, but the staff recommendation is tonight to vote to authorize the city manager to execute the attached contract and supplemental documentation with KR Homes LLC in a form that's approved by the city attorney in that amount of $656,977.75, and then authorize an additional $59,455 for the contingency of the construction project. But also, just to make sure we understand that, we have to authorize the initial upfront money that fire would be reimbursing us. So we need the authority to spend the full amount for the contractor and the entire project, and then be reimbursed that half that amount. Any questions?
Okay, I saw Rory's hand go up first, and then.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Rory would like to know about just some of the differences between the bids on the bid slide. It shows the KR Homes line items for the branch circuits and for feeders and branch circuits, and then also some of the site work being quite substantially lower than the other 2 bids, and I'm especially on the feeder and branch circuits, which I sort of understand to be some of that conduit and infrastructure to convey the power to these buildings. Just wondering how this bid's $250,000 or more less than the other 2, if you can answer that.
Yeah, we noticed that as well. I'm not sure if there's any specific comments I have on why they bid lower on that, but it was something we noticed, and we did vet them per state law of how we need to make sure that they are in compliance with their bid and the bid specs that they viewed. And so there's certain documentation they signed as part of that bid package that these are feasible costs estimates. Yeah, beyond that, it is something we noticed as well, but this bid actually aligns more with the engineer's estimate. So the other two were quite a bit higher than that engineer's estimate. This is still higher than our engineer's estimate, but it's much lower, as you can see, than the other two.
Councilmember Murray?
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Jeff, for the presentation and all of the work. I love the creativity and finding or reusing the concrete pad that's already there for this project. I guess just to follow up first on Councilmember Payne Donovan's question. So in terms of kind of what we could potentially, given the discrepancy between those two numbers, I guess what I wouldn't want to happen is to have huge change orders come and hit us down the line. And so I guess what protection do we have against that?
Well, as part of the project management, I think that we did 2 walkthroughs for providers, so that was something we would hope would help inform the bid pricing. But as well as I'm hoping just good project management, we'll be able to stay on top of any issues that arise. I mean, there's always that risk that we could get hit with change orders with any project that we do. So I think that we're prepared for anything that comes up, but we did retain Stantec as part of the construction management as well, so they'll be able to help advise us and review any of the submittals that come in. So that's something that we've thought of as well, but we do for every contract.
Okay. Yeah, just because it is, I mean, such a significant difference. And I guess connected to that a little bit, given the inexpensive or less expensive, I guess, cost from them to do some of that connecting work. And I think it's fascinating that you can do that. I guess I'd never thought of that until seeing the plan here. So we have a huge generator that's going in to power 2 nearby buildings. I guess what conversations or consideration did we have, given we know that the library and City Hall could also use generator service around whether or not a singular generator could perhaps serve as backup for all 4 buildings?
Yeah, we did discuss that a little bit, and we still are discussing that with the library. So it is a potential home for the existing generator at PD. It would be something we'd have to hire a contractor to do, or maybe it would be a change order for the current contractor to place it there instead or something of that nature. We haven't discussed any of that with any contractors, but we have talked about that with the library. So we'll continue to take a look at that, because if it's in good shape, it might make a lot of sense to continue to utilize that.
Oh, sorry, and I guess maybe I was going to say, I'm going to rephrase my question a little bit. So we're putting in a new generator that isn't directly in either of the buildings that it's serving, right, with the police station and the fire station. I guess I'm curious if all we need is a conduit to connect those buildings to this new generator, if we discussed whether building a conduit from City Hall to the new generator and from the library to the new generator would serve our end goals of having backup service for those 2 buildings in a less expensive way than doing we have another generator coming up on the agenda, as well as we don't have a solution currently for the library, which is our, local cooling center, we know, and, provides lots of other wonderful resources for our community. So I guess I'm just curious if that was discussed at all.
Yeah, the difficulty is we did some exploration of that, as well as like 1 generator for the 3 buildings, so to speak. But there are so many utilities between the police station and City Hall. One of the locations we thought of putting it would be next to the garage. You see there's kind of an open area, PD, right there. But there are so many vaults full of utilities through there, because we asked the same thing, and it didn't seem like it was a viable solution at all to try to go through there. But it just was not going to work out for us for that. As far as the library goes, that was one of the things I was mentioning, is maybe the existing generator is something, and they asked us about that. If the existing PD generator could be reused for the library itself, because it could, if we did a load study, we'd have to do some design work first, but it could be utilized for the library and power 1 building. But to power both fire and PD was too much for it. It's too small of a generator for that.
Sorry, Jeff. I was going to say, I think we're different question, different answer, which, I mean, those all sound like good things to explore, and I'm glad we're exploring those things. But I guess we're buying a brand-new generator that we determined the size and this, I mean, you said 12 tons or so, I don't know, something, it's huge, right? So I guess, could that generator, in theory, power all 4 buildings where we have
No.
backup generator needs?
No.
No.
No, it's not big enough to do all 4 buildings.
Given where we're putting the generator and that it has its own space now with that landing pad, are there generators that could have or could potentially support powering all 4 of those buildings?
I mean, I wouldn't say that it's not possible. I don't know if Stantec took a look at it, whether we could power all 4 buildings with the king-size generator. I don't know what size of generator that would be to make that happen. But no, that's not something that we looked at to power all 4 with one.
Okay.
I think it seemed like it was going to be a tall task to even get both of them because this generator is huge.
Yeah.
And to locate it was very, very difficult. To go bigger, I don't know if we'd have a place to put it.
Okay. No, I appreciate, I was going to say, and again, those weren't questions that I had previously because, you know, we were talking about a rooftop generator and all of those things. I guess I didn't even realize the sort of generator existed where we could host it offsite and perhaps power multiple buildings. So I guess I'd be curious to explore that a little bit more and see if there's opportunity there, but I appreciate the answers. Thank you.
Yeah, and I'll talk in the next presentation a little bit more about City Hall, and you'll see why it was more difficult for that too.
Councilmember Woodard?
Thank you, Mayor. Before I get to my questions, I just wanted to double back to the point about the bids, and I was going to say, I don't know how you personally would be able to do this, but, you know, initial glance, it seems like the feeders and branch circuits of the person that we, or the organization we went to, or selected, whatever the right framing is, highly disagrees with the other 2 bidders. And that to me seems like a concrete thing. Like, it's the same number unit price, so how is yours add up to that number, but theirs added up to a significantly different number? And again, I don't know if there's anything you can do, but that's where I would say, in the spirit of, I appreciate you staying on top of it. I don't know if you can and something like that, but it's like, is their design just that much more efficient? They don't need, you know, I don't know. Again, just putting that out there. Not my real question, just putting it out there as a, hey, we can see it just on first glance. Of like, if I had to study something, I'd look at that category, because again, those are concrete somethings, unit prices, gets to a whole number, and those are very different numbers. Anyway, to mine, thankfully, mine are really just curiosity questions. So I have a microphone, you have to sit with me. Going to the scope of work, I was just curious, looking at this idea of the conduits. One, I was curious, are these above ground? Are they buried? Are they trenched in? I mean, how's it going to look? Just curiosity.
Yeah, they're below ground, they're trenched.
Okay. So just putting that out there, I figured that might have been the case because I was thinking, man, that price goes up as I start cutting through concrete, as opposed to concrete I don't care about on the backside of things. Just thinking out loud of like, I like the thinking here, but how would we do that? The other concern now that I have, and you know, I'm projecting because I was a kid once, we now have this push to get people into Veterans Park, which is to say it probably won't be a kid, it'll be probably a 50-year-old doing this. But nonetheless, what's the security around this tool? And I don't think anybody's going to steal it. I just think general curiosity, and all of a sudden, I don't know how my hand is caught in here, sir. And now I got new resources that I got to be thinking about paying for as a city. So in that regard, I'm just like, I love that we're activating in a space that's been used, but it's also in the line of sight, and that concerns me, only in the spirit of like, I'll be the guy who's done it for the record. Well, I don't know how my hand got in here.
Yeah, it's something we discussed as well, but it will be fully fenced in, that generator will. It won't be open to the public or accessible to the public. It won't be barbed wire. We can't barb wire anything in the city. It's not legal in our code for us to do that. But no, I would think it would just be fully fenced in so nobody could access the site except for staff. Along with the other question that you were musing on before, the statement, I guess it wasn't a question, the one, but it's different for each contractor. It's hard to predict why their cost was lower for that. I mean, there's different combinations. They're located much further south and not in the Puget Sound area, so they could have lower costs associated with their work. I'm speculating right now. There's many other reasons probably if they're, bid less and expect to be able to do the work for less. They could have different subs and that are more proficient in certain elements, and I'm not sure how they exactly proposed that piece, but there's a lot of explanations for that.
Fair enough. Thank you. That's what I'm saying. I don't know how you could check on that, but again, that is an area. Thank you. End of my questions.
Okay, I don't see any other hands going up. So, Mayor Pro Tem Wall.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Move to authorize the city manager to execute the attached contract and supplemental documentation with KR Homes LLC in form approved by the city attorney in the amount of $656,977.75 and authorize an additional $59,455 for contingency and authorize the use of $372,087 from the fire district for the police and fire generator replacement project.
Second.
Did I hear a second?
Yes.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. And now we are going to talk about the purchase of the City Hall generator.
Okay, for the next item, as mentioned, we're going to review and ask for approval to purchase a temporary generator for City Hall, also with ARPA funds. And so the purpose of purchasing that new generator is that it will make City Hall more resilient also by fully backing up power to this facility where there's currently none. Having a backup power source for city facilities will enable us to serve residents more efficiently and effectively, especially during emergencies. So the agenda is to discuss a little bit of background, the bid, a budget, timeline, request to council, and questions. And in the map you can see here, I highlighted in red I guess this would be the west side of City Hall. That's fully fenced in already with that metal fence. That would be the location of the generator. So currently, as I mentioned, there is no power backup at City Hall, although we did, when we designed and City Hall was built, we anticipated this portion that we would want one. It actually was part of one of the many things that we wanted, if you remember, and we debated, and cost savings that we took out was that generator itself. And so when we did the power needs for this, we did not do an automatic transfer switch, and I'll get into that discussion. Instead, we saved the money from that by setting it up. So all we needed to do was use some cam links to hook up a generator itself, but not an automatic transfer switch. So staff looked into this as well with Stantec and looked at possible locations for a generator. It was much easier to determine the location for this one. And the pad pictured here, just west of City Hall, was that only logical choice, and it was fully fenced in and was also originally designed to house that generator. So we did perform load testing at this site as well for City Hall to make sure we scope out the right size of the generator. And it was determined that we needed a 275 kilowatt, and this would be a temporary generator. There's all these terms we're throwing out, standby, temporary. It's confusing, but really the idea is that if you have a standby generator, it's when you're using an automatic transfer switch, so the power goes out, it comes on right away. You don't have to do anything. And those are very expensive. An automatic transfer switch could be like $100,000 to install. But the opposite would be if you used what you call a temporary generator. It'd be something much larger than what you have at your home, but it's something that you would use and only hook up when the power goes out. And so somebody would physically have to go out there and connect it and start it, is the difference. So load testing was performed, that 275 kilowatt temporary generator. We also considered whether we should have a permanent standby or that temporary. And the additional work exceeded $100,000 in the cost for that transfer switch. And so, as mentioned, that was one of the things that we did cut out was the transfer switch when we built it. And so this proposed generator, the temporary generator, we have a cam lock system that will work well and easy for maintenance staff to attach. It's really just a plug and play type situation. So staff looked through various competitive bidding contracts, and with advice from Stantec as well as the different generators that were possible to fit in this location and serve our needs, we did get a Sourcewell bid from Cummins, which is the same generator we have at Public Works and PD. The generator being proposed to purchase is pictured here, minus the trailer and the wheels. So it would come to us without those elements, but it would come to us on a flatbed trailer that we would then remove, and we would, it would be on the city to crane that into place and secure it. So the only portion of this project is really just a purchase, and then it gets delivered to us and we have to deal with it and set it up. The one other thing that they would do that Cummins would do for this diesel generator is come out and install a coolant heater. That's really just so we don't freeze anything up inside of that during the winter. And then also it does come with the cam blocks. So that purchase of that generator is currently about 21 weeks out. And so I'm told that's really, really good for what it was a few years ago. So that's exciting. But that just means that install wouldn't happen until later spring or summer when that arrives. So in the budget for this project, we did have that original $550,000. So it's funded with ARPA of $177,801, and then an additional cost for the install and contingency, which we wouldn't be contracting out with that crane operator until next year, would be city funding. So either it would be come from the general fund operations, or it would come from a CIP fund, depending on what was determined. So just a little bit of contingency there, depending if something came up that we would need to address. And the timeline for the project tonight would be council action. We would place the order before the end of the year because the price would go up next year, and then install the generator when it arrives. So the staff recommendation as a request of council would be at tonight's meeting to vote to authorize city manager to purchase that temporary or portable generator for City Hall in the amount of $177,801 from Cummins via Sourcewell, and authorize initial $10,000 installation costs and contingency. Any questions?
Do we have any questions? Councilmember Murray?
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you again, Jeff. Just because I feel like at some point somebody's going to ask me this question, I want to make sure that I'm really clear on explanation, especially since we're looking at 2 generator purchases right in a row. And I know we've had lots of talk about budget and ensuring that we're being very thoughtful in how we're spending money. So the total cost of the generator project for the police station and the fire station is like $745,000, right? And this one is just under 200,000, 177,000. I guess, so would you, help me understand how to explain to folks why we can't do what we're doing at City Hall for the police station and the fire station, which would be, if it was replicated, why is it so much cheaper to provide backup for City Hall than it is to provide backup for the police and fire station? Maybe that's the simple question.
Yeah, I think there's a couple of factors. One is that you can't locate the generator right next to it. And so there's a lot more conduit that you have to run. And when you have to run that much power that far, it's really big conduit. So to handle it, the further you go, you need a larger conduit to transfer that power. So that's part of it. The other part of it is just the automatic transfer switch. Having an automatic transfer switch it's a luxury, and it's something that emergency services really need. But it is very, very, very expensive, and so we don't have that here, and so it's quite a bit cheaper. We did have that discussion of whether, when we built it, if we should just, purchase the automatic transfer switch and have it installed as part of it, but we were trying to save money as well to get under budget for this project. So those are 2 of the really big things. I was told by them, though, if we did do an automatic transfer switch, you would have all those costs associated, but the generator cost would be a little bit less for a standby generator than that portable one. But it still did not make up the difference, even close to it. This is by far the cheapest way to go.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Mm-hmm.
So who would be the staff person that comes in to turn it on?
So we do have staff that are on call. So there's a Public Works on-call person that would be trained on it. Everybody at Public Works would learn how to do that. We also have facilities techs that could come in a situation such as that to fire it up, the generator, so it's working.
All right. Councilmember Woodard.
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, I just had one more question, and I was like, I guess it could wait, but no, I think the public should know this answer. Everything eventually got to be replaced. How far out are we looking on this conversation coming back to us?
Well, the current generator at PD is over 20 years old.
Okay,
So I'd say that's a pretty good timeline, is 20-something years.
excellent.
Yeah.
Thank
Hard
you.
to judge. We do not put a lot of hours on that. It's exercised monthly on its own on a program. So that way it keeps it functional, but there's not very many hours on it, so it should be operational for a long time.
Perfect, thank you.
Okay. All right, Mayor Pro Tem Wall.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Move to authorize city manager to purchase a portable generator for City Hall in the amount of $177,801 from Cummins via Sourcewell, and authorize an additional $10,000 in installation costs and contingency.
Second.
All right, so it's been moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. And next is the review and vote on an interlocal agreement amendment 3 for Edmonds School District.
Okay, let's jump on the gun on the presentation already. So this is the Edmonds School District. So I don't have a PowerPoint for this one, but tonight staff are proposing changes to the interlocal agreement that we've discussed with the Edmonds School District. So the city and school district have had an interlocal agreement for many decades. The newest version was approved by council in 2018 and has had a few subsequent amendments over the past couple of years. The ILA being amended does govern how the school district and city exchange recreational facilities and services, but specifically in regard to Terrace Park Elementary's athletic fields, Mountlake Terrace High School theater, kids' crew sites, and the pavilion's pool and racquetball courts. So this third amendment addresses some concerns or a request by the Washington State Recreation and Conservation Office to update the ILA to account for the current length of the agreement and also update language that allows the city to plan, design, engineer, permit, construct, and maintain those improvements on property that's owned by the school district. So if you remember, there was a grant for Evergreen Playfield number 5, which is partially city property, but there's poles that are outside of that on Edmonds School District property. And the ILA that the council approved in 2018 complied with the Recreation Conservation Office's guidance as of the date of construction this last summer. And since then, when we applied for reimbursement, they changed their guidance and wanted us to update this ILA. So the Youth Athletic Facilities grant that we were awarded requires 20 years of control and tenure. And so we were basically at that number, so they wanted us to extend it. We did, as part of this agreement. The amendment does extend that, the ILA with the school district. The current version that was approved by the state, it was actually prior to us applying and then also through construction, did and was signed off by them. But as mentioned, when we went to get reimbursed, they asked us to do this before they pay us, reimburse us for the project and for the grant total, which is somewhere in the neighborhood of $250,000 or something of that amount. So very short amendment to this ILA, but it's a really good interlocal agreement and a good example of the municipality and school district working together to share resources. So they've been a good partner and understanding what we needed to do to get this done. And so I believe that is something that they're approving as well soon. And so as part of this, it would be for tonight that request to council staff recommendations for the city council to authorize the city manager to sign amendment number 3 to the interlocal agreement for that exchange of recreational facilities and services that addresses RCO's concerns. Do you have any questions?
Which? Councilmember Soundmore?
It's just real easy, thank you. I just heard some things that you hadn't said before that you normally talk about. So if I get them all right, pay first, I guess they want to see that we're actually doing the work, but I want to make sure the school district actually has the money. And I'm not trying to be facetious here, but that's something a little bit different. And then there seems to be a lot of liability issues that maybe are crossed over a little bit on if somebody gets hurt on certain parts of the property. But can you just point out some of the things that are different than we normally do again? Because it just
Yeah.
seemed a little odd.
Yeah, the amendment, it really only addresses the couple things that I mentioned. There's the years of control and tenure, so that's RCO terminology. For the school district, it's just the term of the interlocal agreement, how long that it goes, the length of it. So we extended that out. And then the other piece of language is the bit that I mentioned that's language that allows the city to plan, design, engineer, permit, construct, and maintain the improvements on property that is owned by the school district. And so that was the exact phrasing they sent me to insert into it. And so those are the changes in it. There's nothing the school district's paying for this. This is an RCO grant that the city was awarded as part of the Youth Athletic Facilities Grant for new lighting on Evergreen 5 that we installed this past summer. And so part of that, 50% of the funding came from the city and 50% from RCO, the state, for that grant. So the project's already done, and now we're just trying to get that grant money, reimbursed to the city for us to be whole from that project.
And I know Hillary's on the phone too, and I always appreciate her advice as well on just that, I don't want to say hold harmless, but, and a lot of times that doesn't even hold up in court, but that phrase they had you put in there, it seemed like they needed a little bit more, because where do you go? Do you need approval before you build on there, or can you go ahead and just build on there? I mean, it just seems a little loose.
Yeah, the language you're talking about is they wanted the school district wanted something included that we weren't just going to start applying for stuff without telling them. They wanted to be consulted to make sure it fit within their capital facilities plan as well. And so there was something in there that I mentioned, I don't remember the exact, I'd have to look that up, but it was something about their capital construction team to make sure we work through them on any projects. It's just coordinating projects to make sure that we're not applying for things without them knowing.
Okay, Councilmember Murray.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Jeff. I did have a question about, I guess, the reference to Evergreen playfields 4, 5, and 6, and whether that's the first time we've specifically called out Evergreen 6. I know I get questions about that sometimes, and maybe you can clear it up in terms of, so that's the track, right? I know I've heard folks not being fully clear around whether or not that's a city resource that they can use during school hours, or whether or not that is a resource that is off limits during school hours. I think in the original agreement, it just talks about school playfield, which I guess I would interpret to mean Evergreen 4, 5, but I guess, can you just talk a little bit more about kind of both what has been the expectation and, kind of our norms of working with the school district?
Yeah, Evergreen 6 is owned by the school district, and it's included in that Evergreen playfield, so it's 4, 5, and 6. Evergreen 6, that has the track around it to the north where the carnival is during Tour de Terrace, things like that. There are people who walk the track during the day. The school district allows that. I think the area they would like to make sure is most secure is the lower fields, 4 and 5. But it's up to them. They could disallow that at any time if they'd wanted to, but they do realize it's a community amenity that people like to walk the track during the day. So in the original ILA, it has a map on the back, and it does show that as highlighted as well. So none of that is city property.
Got it. Okay, super helpful. Thank you.
Okay, I don't see any other hands. Mayor Pro Tem Wall.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Move to authorize the city manager to sign amendment number 3 to the 2018 interlocal agreement with Edmonds School District number 15 for the exchange of recreational facilities and services.
Second.
So it's been moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. And next is the review and vote on the Pedestrian Plaza property acquisition, again with Jeff Betts.
Okay, so my last item tonight, I think, is to, as mentioned, review and vote on Pedestrian Plaza. And I know council we've reviewed this item not the exact property purchase, but this project numerous times in the past and discussed water features. We've discussed compass for the area and signage and artwork. So hopefully it's well known to everybody, but we're finally at the point after a number of years working with WashDOT on acquiring this property to tonight where the question would be before the council. So the purpose tonight is acquisition of WashDOT property to construct a pedestrian plaza adjacent to the Linwood Link Light Rail Station, and it's highlighted in the map here on the bottom. So that is on the corner of Van Ryn Boulevard and 56th Avenue West. If you looked at it right now, it would be a big hillside. So there's not a lot to identify at the moment. But as part of the project, as part of tonight's presentation, we'll talk a little bit about the background, the purchase itself, timeline, and request to council and questions. This is the design from OTAC, and it's mostly current. They're finalizing this design. The pathway was removed, as you know. We talked about that previously to cut some costs. But this is from January 2019, but it is mostly still up to date. We are finalizing that design here in the next month or two. So some background. The project is funded with Sound Transit Access Enhancement funding, and that's a $2 million agreement the city made with Sound Transit a few years ago, and that is to improve pedestrian access to light rail. Design actually began in 2017. There were a few community meetings, and also many times at the Recreation Parks Advisory Commission, this project was discussed, and quite a few city council meetings as well. So the WashDOT acquisition process of surplus property has taken several years, and the process itself does in general just take a long time to execute, but we also were waiting for light rail to get finished being built before we executed this portion of it and obtained the property. So the process of purchasing WashDOT property is in itself a little bit different than private property. So we had to perform a survey, which is typical, and also get an appraisal. And part of that appraisal was to get a cost per square foot, and that's noted below. The WashDOT area itself, acquisition area, is 2,706 square feet, and it was appraised at $70 a square foot for that $189,420 indicated value. So I mentioned above 4,000 square foot parcel, and that's the total new plaza that will be, because we're incorporating not only the WashDOT purchase, but also a donation of land from Sierra. And so that'll be something that we look to finalize here shortly as well. But between those two and the combination of that, it's about 4,000 square feet approximately. So upon execution of an offer letter from WashDOT, then you would, they would essentially get you a quick claim deed from that purchase. And that's pretty much the straightforward of it from WashDOT. There's not a purchase and sale agreement. So the timeline for the project, the pedestrian plaza itself, we spoke about the design work, but moving forward, we plan to finalize that design here in the next couple months and to go to bid for construction of that plaza. And then the construction would happen this summer. So staff recommend that City Council authorizes the city manager to sign the attached offer letter and any additional transaction paperwork from the Washington State Department of Transportation for purchase of surplus land in the amount of $189,420. Are there any questions?
Do I see any questions? Councilmember Woodard?
Not a question, a comment, or perhaps a request, actually. The nerd in me. If you weren't planning to do this already, I would hope that the same way we're tracking, photo documenting, I should say, the work being done at Ballinger, I think this would be another great space to do that. I just, again, I'm like, alert the schools, man, like that's going to be so cool, because you walk by now, and if you're just not that person who can visualize that, you just will not believe that this is probably about 4,000 square feet. I've been trying to do the math in my head. Like, imagine this space is somehow going to be over there with all the stuff we've already authorized, but it's just hard to see it. And I walk by it every day, and it's just hard to see it. So to document that would, I just think, make for a wonderful video at some point or something. I don't know.
Councilmember Murray?
Thank you, Mayor. And Jeff, my apologies if you said this, but if you did, I missed it, and I just want to make sure folks are tracking who maybe aren't looking through all of our materials. Funding for this project came from where, or is coming from where?
It's the Sound Transit Access Enhancement Agreement.
Awesome. Thank you.
Councilmember Payne Donovan?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And this is not a question, but just a statement of excitement. This project, they're just seeing the timeline and the fact that it should be finished next year, I think, is a great example of why, well, not why, but it's very exciting. It will really anchor the light rail experience on the south side of 236 and bring a lot of sort of opportunities to engage with our fellow transit riders and the new residents that'll be moving into that space. So kudos to you and everybody else involved. It's been a long process, and it's going to be a great space. So really stoked to see it opened.
So I just have a rule. At first, I thought that since Sound Transit put the wall up on that side, on the east side of the light rail, I thought that you wouldn't be able to see our sculpture. But now I've ridden it several times where I sat down on the east side as we're coming north, and you can actually see over the, whatever that's called, the barrier, and you can actually see the piece of property, and then so the sculpture will be on top of that. So it made me feel a lot better, because at first I thought, oh my gosh, you're not going to be able to see it at all coming in. And I kept telling everybody, you're going to see this beautiful piece of art as you come in. But now you can. So I'm glad that it's actually happening, and we're going to have something. So anyone else? So Mayor Pro Tem Wall?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Move to authorize the city manager to sign the offer letter and any additional transaction paperwork from the Washington State Department of Transportation for purchase of surplus land in the amount of $189,420.
Second.
All right, it's been moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And Mayor, if I might, a 5-minute break be appropriate at this point for the council?
Okay. 5 minutes, so we'll be back at 8:39.
Yeah, 8:40.
All right. All right, we're back in session. And now next is the review and vote on the interlocal agreement with the Snohomish County for Emergency Management Services with our Deputy City Manager, Carolyn Hope.
Thank you, Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, and City Council. I am here tonight to provide you with some correct information about the ILA with Snohomish County for Emergency Services. This contract does have an annual fee of about $35,000 a year to provide the services outlined in the memo, which included helping us with several plans and training and providing up-to-date information about emergencies happening in our region. We received this ILA late in October, which is why it is not in the budget, but we feel like we'll have enough funding to pay for this in the approved budget, so we're not asking for a budget amendment tonight. Happy to answer any other questions you might have about this.
Councilmember Salmore?
So we talked about this on November 5th, and we were told there was no fees because I remember asking about section 7.1 that talked about the per capita, and it was explained that that was for something else. And so now it's $35,000, and we don't have it budgeted in our budget.
I was mistaken, so I'm here tonight to correct the facts on this. And We do not have it in the budget because I never received the ILA until October 30th, which you'd already received the budget by then. So it is about $35,000 a year. We feel like we'll find the funding within our budget to make this happen.
What have we paid in the past years?
I don't have that information in front of me.
But we did pay money in the past years.
I am assuming that we did. We've had an ILA for several years with the county. And just as a point of reference, one of the plans that they would do for us would cost us on the market with a consultant about $100,000.
Any other questions? Okay. Mayor Pro Tem Wall.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Move to authorize the city manager to sign the attached interlocal agreement for emergency management services with Snohomish County.
All right.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you.
And now we move to the review and vote on the reallocation of the American Rescue Plan Act, ARPA funds, with with Carolyn Hope.
Yes, thank you. We have a project at Evergreen Field that came in over our engineer's estimate for bidding, and we are working on ways to figure out our next steps with that. So we were not able to bring it to you tonight to encumber the ARPA funds associated with that project. So our proposal here is to transfer funds from the Evergreen project, the ARPA funds, to the police department project, which is already encumbered with ARPA funds, and move the REIT funds from the police department to the Evergreen project. And then we'll continue to work on how to finalize the funding and the work that remains at Evergreen.
Okay, do we have any questions on that? Mayor Pro Tem Wall.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Move to, hold on. There it is. Move to authorize the city manager to reallocate ARPA funds from the Evergreen Playfield capital project to the police department roof and HVAC capital project.
Second.
All right, it's been moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries on that, too.
Thank you.
Thank you. And next is the review and vote on the proposed agreement with the Police Department Guild Collective Bargaining Unit with our city manager, Jeff Knighton.
Thank you, Mayor. Mayor Pro Tem, members of council. So the city has negotiated with the Mountlake Terrace Police Guild that covers law enforcement officers. In anticipation of the contract expiration at the end of this year, we entered into negotiations to discuss a contract from January 1, 2025 through December 31st, 2027. The changes are highlighted in the memo you have before you. Just a couple ones that I will mention. The addition of a pilot program for what's called a pitman schedule for day shift at the police department, which would allow officers on that day shift to have every other weekend off. We also have pay raises included, including a 6% increase in 2025 and 3.5% increases in 2026 and 27, and the inclusion of a bilingual premium pay for officers who complete satisfactory language testing, and establishment of longevity pay, and also the establishment of a assigned vehicle program. And those are the highlights of the contract changes, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Are there any questions? Okay. Do I call? If there's questions, do I call for the question?
We have a motion and a second, and then if there are any questions, I'd be happy to answer. That's up to you, council member.
Mayor Potem Wall?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Put the motion on the table. Move to approve the agreement for Police Guild Collective Bargaining Unit.
Second.
So it's been moved and seconded? Do I call for the question now?
As long as there are no questions, then we can call for the question.
All right. So all in favor? All opposed?
No.
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 So I hear 7 noes. So this is not passed. Okay,
Correct. Thank you.
thank you. And then number 13 is the city manager's report.
Thank you, Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, members of council. Just a couple of things to mention tonight. First, the Mountlake Terrace Community Academy, which I know a number of you are very excited about, is scheduled to start on February 26th. It's a Wednesday evening, and those sessions will go from 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. We generally expect them to be about 90 minutes, but wanted to have that schedule for any extra time that's needed. We'll be talking about each of the various departments around the city and making sure that members of our community know how we operate and what we do and why we do it, which I think is the most important part. This will, however, require, because it's Wednesday night, it's a 6-week program, will, however, require the cancellation of the Terrace talk on March 12th, which I'm sure everybody is upset about. So we'll have that ready to go. Exciting news for Veterans Park Trail. We are having a pre-construction meeting with the contractor early in January. And if everything goes as expected, we will have that project complete by October of next year, with the exception of the area right along the Millstream project, which is will be under construction at that time. And for the tree survey that has been open for quite a while for the community, that will close on January 2nd. So if you haven't provided your comments yet, please take the opportunity to go in there and do that. And finally, well, almost finally, the open house for the Main Street project for Phase 2 is scheduled for February 12th here in this room, and we will be reaching out personally to all the affected property owners and inviting them to that open house in January, and also the wider community so they can see what plans we have. And this is the last meeting of the year for 2024, barring an emergency. We canceled the meeting on the 26th, and I think we've had a very productive year. We got a comp plan, council got a comp plan adopted and got the budget adopted, and a lot of heavy lifting in there. So I think we were very successful with major projects this year. So happy to answer any questions if you have any.
Are there any questions or comments? Oh, Councilmember Payne Donovan.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and I'd agree with the city manager, but I did have a couple quick questions. Well, first a comment on the City Academy. I keep getting that. Is that what we're calling it?
Community Academy.
Community Academy. Been spreading the good word and have some interested folks, so really pleased that we're doing that. Question though, I noticed the headline this week about Edmonds tree or canopy ordinance being ruled unconstitutional, being challenged and then ruled unconstitutional. I was just wondering if at a future meeting we could be updated on how our canopy program, is or isn't impacted by that ruling.
Yeah, I was just reading that article today, actually. We can certainly do that. I don't think that our ordinance has the same issues or concerns, but we can walk through those with the council.
Councilmember Murray?
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, City Manager. Just a quick question for the Community Academy. Do we have a date that applications will go live so that folks can watch for that?
Yeah, so we're going to do that first week of the new year. And so we give people about a month, roughly, to express their interest.
Great.
And I also wanted to add that Academy is for ages 16 and up. So we really want to get some interested junior and senior high school students involved in paying attention to what's going on in local government.
Love it. Thank you.
Councilmember Woodard?
Excuse me. Thank you, Mayor. Everybody's going to make a comment about the Community Academy. Mine is to get you to reconsider canceling Terrace Talk. I'm serious. And instead, since it's already scheduled on that night, maybe use that as a free window into this is what you should have applied for while you're still educating, without knowing what you're doing that day, where it's going to be. But if there's got, that capacity, even if it's only for that hour, just schedule the curriculum that day or the lesson plan for an hour's worth. If no one tunes in, that's on them. We record these things, but again, it'd be an easy window into this is what you should have done, generating its own kind of interest, because folks could actually see, oh, crap, that is good use of my time. Yeah. So just putting that out there.
Thanks.
All right, I don't see any other hands going up. So thank you. We're going to have a lot of citizens participating next year on a lot of different levels, which is good. Okay, so next is the council liaison reports. And let's start here to my right with Councilmember Payne Donovan.
Oh, boy. Thank you. I'll start back on December. Is it December still? December 9th, I had a nice check-in with our city manager. That Wednesday morning, December 11th, I attended the Mountlake Terrace Employee Appreciation Breakfast. Wish I could have stayed longer, but that's always a good time. And then attended our council work session last week. And I think it was Tuesday. This week's blurring together. Tuesday the 17th, stopped by the Chambers quarterly meeting, holiday event, and
the last meeting of the year.
Yep, and enjoyed meeting several new business folk, entrepreneurs there, and really pleased with the energy that the chamber keeps building for the business community and for Mountlake Terrace as a whole. And that closes my liaison report. Thank you.
All right, then I'll just move over to Councilmember Ryan.
Thank you, Mayor. On December 6th, I attended the tree lighting.
Oh, I did that too.
Yeah, I think we're all there. And then, on the 10th, I had a Left One retirement meeting. Then on the 11th, attended the employee breakfast celebration. And they had lots of bacon. And which some years it's hard to get the bacon. There's usually more pancakes than bacon, but this year there was more bacon. So that's really an important thing to know. A lot of people complained last year. And then that's the end of my report. Oh, yeah, that's it. Thank you.
Councilmember Murray.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm never as entertaining as Councilmember Ryan. I'm not sure about going right after him. I know I'm no trying there for sure. So back on the 6th, I also was at the tree lighting and just want to thank all of the staff and our residents, particularly our performers. We had great choir and band performances, which was great, and great volunteers handing out cookies and cocoa and all the good things. It was wonderful. It's always a good opportunity to see folks who often I don't see the rest of the year at city events. So I appreciate that we continue to do that and we're able to do so. On the 11th, it was the Employee Appreciation Breakfast, and glad to be able to be there and celebrate our staff. Again, none of the things that we want to do as a community happen without each and every one of them. And so just appreciate all of the work that they put in this year. We did accomplish a lot. And so really grateful for all of our staff who made that happen. It was nice to celebrate and recognize them. Later that day was the Snohomish County Tomorrow meeting that I'm sure Mayor Pro Tem Wall will talk a little bit more about, but it was a good opportunity to both provide feedback and hear other thoughts from folks across the county, both elected officials, staff, other governmental agencies, non-governmental agencies, about opportunities to collaborate and how we can facilitate that and what that might look like. And so excited to see where that leads us in terms of partnership and helping ultimately serve all of our residents across the county more effectively and efficiently. The 12th was my city manager meeting and our work session. And then last night we had our monthly DEI commission meeting. They had a dinner with the staff here of our staff DEI committee, which I thought was a wonderful idea, and then had their regular meeting. I think kind of high level updates. They looked at events for 2025. And so Andrew Applewick was there to talk about where there's opportunity to partner there. They also looked at our upcoming proclamations for the next couple of months for Lunar New Year and Black History Month, and gave their reports, and they stay busy. It never ceases to amaze me all of the places that our commissioners on our DEI commission continue to show up and support our community, and oftentimes not just show up, but really are volunteering and helping with the work of those events. And so just continued kudos to them for really embracing those roles and the work that they do. And one thing I wanted to mention, which I thought was interesting. So if you're riding public transportation and you have young folks in your life, you've probably heard that they can ride for free through their 19th until they turn 19, which is great. One of the things that I learned here recently, though, is if they ride, that usually they don't need a card or anything, they can just get on transit. But if you ride the monorail, they need a card. And so it's good to know that they have special youth cards that you can get, and you can get them at the Linwood Transit Center. They have got the little shop there, and they can get their own personalized cards. It shows the expiration date, which is kind of cool. It's their 19th birthday. So anyway, it can be helpful to have more broadly. I think it's interesting in trying to show that youth are showing up and using transit. And so I definitely took my kids and we got them, but found out that it's actually necessary if you're riding the monorail. So if you're going to the Seattle Center or to Climate Pledge Arena or any of those sorts of outings here, and you've got young folks that are riding transit for free, know that it is helpful to go and get those cards. And I think that's all I have. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Councilmember Woodard.
Thank you, Mayor. Firstly, let the record reflect, I did get my report into our city clerk that we abandoned the opportunity to share it publicly. So you can look in the record if you want to know what you were doing a couple months ago. In the spirit of catching up, outside of this window, I forgot to mention the last time that on the 27th of November, I did participate in the risk assessment inquiry with Elisa Kim from the State Auditor's Office. We were all asked if one of us could stand in and do that, and I was able to meet that call. It was a wonderful conversation. They're doing amazing work for the city on behalf of us, and really that's also a way to say kudos to the city to be able to have such a wonderful conversation with a state auditor. Moving to the 6th, I too was at the tree lighting. On the 9th, I had the opportunity to go to the Washington West African Center's discussion of a futuristic Western, or excuse me, a futuristic Western or West African village. I don't know why that was so hard to say. Nonetheless, what a wonderful experience, and just an example of the power of education. If you don't know much about it, the quickest broad stroke is they partnered with the University of Washington and a professor there who had access to students. They put together, and these were graduate students and undergrads, so people who are going to apply this work. And they put together, this is what a village would look like here in Western Washington. Just a wonderful opportunity. So I would say, because we had a chance to visit with them, the mayor, and Mayor Pro Tem, and a couple of our DEI sat in a couple weeks back on their behalf. Excuse me, they were invited to speak with the WAWAC Center community. It was just an extension of that. On the 10th, I had the African American Leaders in Professional Network meeting. On the 11th, I too was at the breakfast, and then I made it to the Terrace talk later that evening, and then on the 12th, I was at the study session, and that would be the end of my report.
Thank you. Councilmember Sonmore?
Thank you. For my liaison reports, there's two. So left one, I also attended with Councilman Ryan to pay claims, and then also had the Recreation and Park Advisory Commission meeting where we talked about the tree survey. So it's still open. We talked about street trees and the inventory, the land donation that we discussed at last Thursday's meeting. We discussed it at Park and Rec. And the restrooms at the Evergreen are in there. When we had this meeting, they were sitting on a whole bunch of different trucks on the side of the road. It was kind of interesting to see. And then we talked about the 2025 work plan, and there's quite a bit on the work plan. Most of it had to do with the connection to transit, firefighters park, supporting grants, park signage, trees and parks, and one of my favorites, a food forest. And then in addition to that, we noticed that the Ivy League isn't on the overall volunteer website. So we asked about adding that. And then we also talked about heritage trees and the certain criteria being over like 36 inches. And also attended, going real fast, the employees' breakfast, and the slideshow was very nice. I heard comments after it was done that he didn't think he did a good job, but I thought he did an excellent job on the slideshow. And there's one thing outside my report I want to bring up. Julie Locklear-Smith was a former council member, and she served our city well. She passed away, and so I just want to take a moment to honor her. That was a big surprise. I heard from her daughter on Facebook, and so I'll get through this. Julie was a wonderful and passionate council member. She started National Night Out in 1999, where she went to all the businesses that she could to get donations because we didn't have money for it. So she got donated hot dogs, hot dog buns, hamburgers, prizes, drinks, and anything that she could. She worked extremely hard for that. And the city, and with all of her work into National Night Out, we had to make a certain video, and it received a national award. She was also a huge proponent of domestic violence. Some of you knew Julie's husband. He passed away May of 2023. He was our former police chief. And shortly after his passing, she learned that she had cancer. And she worked vigorously to try to rid herself of that cancer. But unfortunately, she succumbed to it on November 25th, 2004. She passed away with her two children at her side, Amanda and Max, and they went for a while to our local schools here, and now they're all grown up, young adults, and I just want to thank Julie for her years of service to the city of Mountlake Terrace. That's all I have to report.
Thank you. I saw that on Facebook too. Okay, Mayor Pro Tem Wall.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. All right, so on the 6th, also attended, I got off an airplane and rushed over here so I could attend the holiday tree lighting ceremony, which was fantastic. Always appreciate that opportunity, and then was able to follow that up on the 11th with the employee appreciation breakfast with lots of bacon. Later that evening, had the Snohomish County Tomorrow's General Assembly, had a lot of great discussion and input from around the county, from our fellow jurisdictions and members, council members from around the county, giving us a lot of great insight as to what kind of direction we'd like to see Snohomish County Tomorrow take in the future. More on that. We'll be forming a committee to delve into a lot of the questions that have been asked and provide a lot of additional insight into the ideas that were raised during that discussion. And then we'll be bringing that back to Snohomish County Tomorrow in the next several months, or having further discussion with Snohomish County Tomorrow about the future and how we want to expand the opportunity to take a look at different issues that we're all facing and challenged with here throughout Snohomish County. Then on the 12th, the mayor and city manager and I, with our lobbyists, had met with our representative Ryu and then Representative Davis to talk about our legislative agenda. On the 16th, had that same discussion with our Senator Solomon. And that, I believe, also had a work session in there somewhere on the 12th. So I think that concludes my report. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you very much.
Sorry, and I will take this moment to wish everybody, since this is our last meeting and my last opportunity to speak, wish everybody a very happy holiday season and look forward to working with you all in the new year.
Thank you. Okay, so for my report, on November 18th and 19th, I attended the Cascadia, there's a long title to that, in Portland, Oregon, and it was about housing and how, and it was in Oregon. And so we learned a lot about California, Oregon, and Idaho too, and so forth. And it was, I have my notes, and I can share them to anybody who wants to listen, but it was a fantastic 2 days of events. And then on the 4th, I attended the Linwood Justice Center's tour. That was that the South County cities that met? Or, and then on the 5th, I attended the Economic Alliance Legislative Kickoff, and then the community transit meeting later that day. And then on the 6th, I attended the Seashore Transportation Forum. And then that evening, the tree lighting ceremony. And on the 10th, I attended the Economic Housing of Snohomish County, their coffee in the morning, because it was on housing, and more ideas on how to get more housing done. And then later that afternoon, I met with on Zoom with the executive and the other mayors of Snohomish County. And then on the 11th, I attended the Mountlake Terrace Employees Breakfast. And boy, that was really a great event. And yes, but I only had 2 pieces of bacon.
No pancakes.
And I didn't have any pancakes. I think it was popular. And then I attended that evening I attended the Snohomish County Tomorrow General Assembly, where our Mayor Pro Tem was up there speaking, and I have photos. And then later on the 12th, I also attended the Zoom meetings with Representative Ryu and Representative Davis, and then the next on the 16th with Senator Solomon. And on the 17th, I attended the Mountlake Terrace Chamber, their holiday event at Diamond Knot. And then today, I went into our new Mountlake Terrace licensing to get my car tabs. And it is really a great location in Cedar Plaza. And they really are looking forward to doing a lot of different things. I was invited by our Garth Fell to be a part of the interview team for the several people who wanted to come into Mountlake Terrace. And Garth wanted somebody from Mountlake Terrace there to who knows the city and what we would like to see. And I think we have a very, very good fit with a person that's really interested in learning more about our community. And they put it on the east side, which is on 44th, because I said that you would then get the Briar people and most of the Mountlake Terrace people coming. If you put it on the west side of the freeway, which is one of their, there was some pics on that side too. I didn't think that the majority of the Mountlake Terrace people would go there, but they love the location they're in right now, right on 44th, and I want to get the word out so that more and more people would know that they've opened up and they're in business and they're very, very convenient. And that is the end of my report. Okay, and next is new business. Does anyone have any new business? Councilmember Woodard.
Thank you, Mayor. I too had the chance to use the new licensing place. Absolutely slick, awesome location, and in and out within moments. And we thought we were late on our tabs, which was really freaky and great to have a spot where you could just go and say, "Give me my tabs before I get a ticket," and we weren't. So it all really worked out. I also wanted to say thank you for reminding me. I also too was at the legislative kickoff, which neither here nor there for the record. And then the new business is actually more about just saying thank you, because in the spirit of this is our last of 2024, we did something, what was it, number 11 on the sheet with the ARPA funding, which is to congratulate all of us. I don't know if we could have imagined getting to the end of 2024 and be able to say successfully, we have allocated all, or committed all of the ARPA dollars. I'm sad to say I know other cities did not make that goal and left resources on the table, but that we didn't do that. I just wanted to applaud the council. One, that was a very long process, a lot of decisions being made. Not all of us agreed with all of them, but we always had that, whoever your resident in your mind, as I was, in mind on every decision all the way through, and I really appreciated that. And then just the leadership from the staff. One, to put up with that. Two, to pick it up from someone else who had been doing the process, so you had to figure out what their process was and then convert it to your process to make this all work and not lose a dime in that process. So I just wanted to, again, just say thank you to the city, thank you to my colleagues here, because, again, that was a lot of years, a lot of processes, and this on record is our last chance to have done that. So I just wanted to say, wow, we did it ahead of schedule, because we could have had to call an emergency meeting for next week or something to do that. So pat yourself on the back, if nothing else, that you served our residents well through this pandemic that is technically still going.
Anyone else for new business? Councilmember Ryan?
With the holidays here, the Maverick Cares is having another giveaway for food and items down at the Crazy Moose. It's going to be this Saturday, 11 to 3. You could stop by at 11 to whatever you want, an hour, or 2 to 3. And if you're interested in helping out, hand out whatever there is. And they weren't clear on what they're handing out, but I'm sure there's going to be lots of families there that'll appreciate the items they have. So that's Maverick Cares. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? All right. I don't see anyone else. I'm going to adjourn the meeting. We are adjourned.